Mr. Bhadwaj and Mr. Ravindra to the show. Let me start with this show by congratulating you with the commendable success which you have so far, and I sincerely wish that you will have even more successes in the coming years.
Thank you.
So, tell us something about the journey, how the three of you have been able to build this business of biotech.
Well, we have been working for quite a long time, started our careers as late 80s and me also very early 90s. And we work with different companies, mostly the pharmaceutical area, all big Indian pharmaceutical companies. And one last company when we were working was Biocon. That's where we came across, and Ajay, in fact, Ajay was one of the senior most positioned person in Biocon, and Dr. Ganesh, who was one of the important person of Syngene International Biocon group company. And I was heading manufacturing in Biocon. So that's where we used to get an opportunity to interact each other because we had different skill sets. One is he used to be in strategies and marketing and business development all the time. Ganesh was working closely with the scientists where science was being built, and I was closely interacting and building the entire manufacturing activities at our previous places. So because of these three different segments, we had to interact each other. When we were doing this, we built that company for quite a big portfolio at some point of time. I still remember in 1999 when I joined the company, it was just 45 crores all put together. When we left that company, it was almost 1,000 crore company. So that's how we were part of that particular story. And then at some point of time, we all thought that, okay, Ajay was moving out of the company. That's where, the most like-minded people and was having some sort of an instinct that, we need to do something on our own. Joined Ajay, me, myself, and Dr. Ganesh, started this venture, Anthem Biosciences, in the year 2006.
Okay. So both of you had a stint at Biocon. How did it help you in building the company, that 21 years of experience which you had prior, plus the education? How well it helped in your building this business? How would you like to look back at that?
Well, obviously it was a great experience, and you cannot trivialize the benefit of experience when you start out on your own. And we had also, as Ravi already mentioned, we had very, very complementary skills coming into Anthem. We had among us exposure to almost every part of the business of the company, right? So when we started Anthem, we were very fortunate that, it's when you start a company, it's not just one area that you need to be good at. You have to have simultaneously started with administration, financial discipline, project knowledge, science, marketing, strategy. So and regulatory compliance, there's a huge amount of work to be done in that area as well. So we had covered all that among us. So when we came in here, that was really, really beneficial. And the second thing, and that's equally important, is that we had worked together for a long time before. So for us, it became very natural and easy to gel with each other. So when you start a new company with a whole lot of new people, then there's a lot of time spent in getting to know each other. For us, that phase was already, the discovery phase of knowing each other's personalities, skills, strengths, was already behind us.
So while building the business of Anthem, what were the challenges you both faced, or the trio faced as a biopreneur? What exactly it was, whether it was venture or infrastructural or organizational challenges?
Well, all of the above and more.
Okay.
When you start a company, till you started, and you would know yourself, Shekhar, that it's, till you started, on paper everything will go according to a plan, but in reality it goes according to its, it has its own mind.
True.
So they were finding the right parcel of land, because we need infrastructure.
Okay.
That was a very big challenge. You can't be very far away from the city because you hire highly qualified people who are not going to be happy living in some remote area or in the boondocks. So That's the other thing. And the second was, getting all the finance, infrastructure lined up on time. So that was, but we were fortunate again, we invested early and we invested quite heavily to ensure that we had the right infrastructure to attract the partners. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think in the year 2006, if you see 2006-07, that was the real Bangalore real estate boom was happening in 2006-07. Then only it came down after the click. But that's the time we found it very difficult to find a place which was more optimal for our kind of work. But then we were fortunate enough, and we were still, if you remember, in 2006 we started this discussion to start this company as we incorporated in June. Till October 2006 we were still scouting for land. But in January we had the land in position, started groundbreaking in January 14th or so. And we started operations in 6 months, 2007, June was our first reaction was put in this facility. So that was a big challenge, but then we achieved it in a good pace.
And the other thing is then when you start on your own, and this is fairly underestimated, is when you approach people, you have no credibility. You may have a good resume,
Correct.
but as a business, as an enterprise, you have no credibility with clients. And in our business, people are risking their best projects, their crown jewels are going to be put in your hands.
Okay.
So how do you convince people to come on board? How do you get people to say that, just on the strength of our resume, our past track record is good enough for you to sign on? That is always a challenge, and it was quite a big challenge, I must say. But again, we were fortunate. We were able to convince people early, and some people believed in us. And I must say that I can almost say, looking back, that we've never lost a client because of poor performance. So,
at any point in time during the journey, did you consider taking venture funding, or the capitalist approached you to fund your company? How do you see that perspective?
Fairly early on, and as Ravi just mentioned, 2006 was also the world was, the world of capitalism was go-go capitalism. There was lots of money. The world was awash with money. And getting VC funding was actually quite easy. I still remember we met about 3 or 4 VCs, and the highest valuation we got was about 150 crore. And we just had an idea. This was very tempting, to get somebody to put in 20, 30 crores, take 10, 15, 20% of your company. But I think something instinctively told us that was not what we had set out to do. We left fairly comfortable jobs, to be on our own, to be our own boss. So we were not just going to turn that upside down and let somebody else come on board and be our boss.
Of course. So, looking back at the journey, the challenges which you faced, but it would be unfair not to mention this, that Anthem has been sweeping a lot of awards and accolades across since its inception. Maybe it's Bangalore Bio Excellence Award, whether it is the Gentox platform getting the DST Lockheed Martin India Innovation Award. Then we have the Emerging Company of the Year 2013 award. How do you manage keeping the company at this scale, still having the same pace or even better pace? How do you manage that? I mean, that should be the best question to ask the CEOs and CEOs on this show.
Well, you see, awards are something that you don't work for an award. Award is something that comes your way because you perform. So what do you work for? Performance. And we're quite focused on, going to taking us where we want to be, right? So how do you do that? You constantly upgrade, you constantly innovate, and you constantly invest in newer, smarter infrastructure. And we are doing that right now as we speak. And ever since we started, we've had about 4 to 5 rounds of investment. Putting our money back into it, or further taking debt to keep expanding our facility. So from starting with about 3 or 4 buildings on this side, today we have 6, 7, which are new labs, new infrastructure. That's how we started.
In addition to that, I should add that we kept on discussing before we started this venture, what should be our differentiators, what should be our
USPs.
game change, and what game changers and things like that. And one point we kept on harping on was we should be always delivery centric. A task is given to you, a task is given by a client, just take it up and make sure that you deliver it. Keep on doing that, however small it is, however big a project is. That was our first and mantra which we percolated down the line. We kept on doing that from the first project till today. That's why we always present in our presentations to our clients that our success rate is 98%. And in our kind of area, 98% delivery success is a real high success. People say 80-85% is very good, but we are 98% successful in delivering project. So we were delivery focused and delivery centric all the time. So that gave us an added advantage in performing better and getting awards.
So the growth story, it has been phenomenal. It has been growing day by day. But do we see you acquiring any mid-level companies, or maybe India-based or US-based? Any plans of acquisition of any company and further branching out into different domains in healthcare segment?
Well, again, as I already said, you focus on performance. Acquisition is not something we are saying that it is something is part of our strategy. But if something of the right quality comes along, and we're not averse to it, but are we actively seeking to acquire and get business, an accretive addition to our business that way? I would say no. Again, at this juncture, it's a bit early. Secondly, there is a certain culture that you build in an organization. If you take on something of equal size or even something a little smaller, assimilating that will take up a lot of your energy. To our mind, at this point, to disturb the momentum that we have built up, so it would not be such a great idea. But of course, if something of the right quality, right price comes along, we're not averse to it. We are contrary to maybe already a perception that people may have, we are actually quite a diversified, integrated pharma company now. So we don't have just a single business stream where we have a single identified competitor. So we're not just a CRO company, we have a business in products, in nutrition and dietary supplements, as well as now increasingly active pharmaceutical ingredients. Then we have a branded generic formulations business. So in each area, each sphere, there are companies which are bigger than us, but most companies are smaller than us. In the nutrition product area, we have very unique products. We have our own IP, so I would say there would be hardly a competitor. And then the branded generics formulations business, there are many competitors. So we are just a small part of the very large ocean of competitors there. So put together, I would say we have tried to create, and that was part of our game plan, a diversified company which is then not vulnerable to the shocks that a single product company or a single stream is exposed to.
Okay. Now moving on, we have seen quite a lot of collaborative effort being going on with Anthem and Department of Biotechnology, this green chemistry initiative. So would you like to elaborate on how exactly it's done?
See, we have a number of projects with DBT, with actually BioRack and with others programs under it. Green chemistry is something that we are wedded to biotechnology, and we do believe that there is a great future for biotransformations going forward in the area of chemistry. So we have a project that is currently on, which would produce novel keto reductases for substituting some major drug intermediate steps in production of drug intermediates by bringing around biotransformation using enzymes to bring that biocatalysis. Even in our own efforts in our synthesis plant, we try and come up with processes which are more friendly, eco-friendly, less hazardous, easy on the environment by way of water usage or usage of, or potential to pollute either air or water. So there is definitely a focus we have, because frankly, going forward, these resources will be the most stressed in the world as our country becomes wealthier, and there is a push towards everybody aspiring to do better and better. We have the stress on our resources will be tremendous.
Yeah, in addition to that, we have several other projects. So another project to talk about is a discovery project in cancer area. So this project we got it by virtue of one of our collaboration in the US. They were doing this particular project and they ran out of funds at some point of time, and then they asked us to partner with them and then take it to the next level. That's when we approached the DBT, and then they were willing to fund this, and they funded. We have done a real good progress in this particular area by collaborating with another company and then generating very good data at this point of time, and it's ready to go to the next level of development.
Now, there have been a lot of buzz going on and a lot of comparison going on in between the IT sector and the BT sector, and people are comparing now that the way IT grew in Karnataka or say India and the way BT is growing. And one of the reasons why IT is so popular, because many of the companies are going public, IPOs, it has become a common name in Indian scenario. But we have not seen many biotech companies or pharma going into the IPO and going public. So how soon we see Anthem going public?
Well, we don't have any set plans. I would say the comparison between IT and BT is a little bit unfair.
Okay.
I think it also comes from trying to, as lay people, we always like to simplify things so that we understand them better. But you cannot lie. IT is a completely different set of business. It has a different dynamics to it. It's also something which is not as capital intensive. It doesn't have the same gestation periods that biotechnology businesses have. So that comparison itself is a little, I would say, oversimplifying things. However, both are the businesses of the future, and that's where they come in the same bracket. IT is a great, one of the reasons why it's so well known is the companies are quite massive, and it's a big employment generator. I don't see biotechnology generating that kind of employment. But it has a bigger potential to affect the lives of people at every level. So from that perspective, biotechnology, I would say, is more fundamental. It can affect
lives of millions.
It can affect at a very, very basic level lives of farmers, of you name, agriculturists, healthcare. It will touch every sphere of our life. So in terms of IPO, Anthem doesn't have a fixed plan as to we will go IPO at this time. When the timing is right and everything is, I think all the ducks are lined up, we would probably look at it.
Sure. So, looking at the success rate of biotech companies, and we don't see many of the startups in the biotech space when compared to the IT space, as I was talking about the comparison. So, what stops Indians from building long-lasting, durable biotech companies like yours? What is the actual, inhibiting factor here?
Well, I feel again, as Ajay said, biotech is a different beast compared to an IT thing. It's more knowledge-driven kind of a business than IT. It's more of a service kind of a model. Now here you need a lot of new ideas, techniques, technologies to be brought in. In India, the base is not there. Very few institutions are really teaching this kind of science in India. It all has to be learned from the Western world. So slowly it's trickling down, and people were trying to catch it up. You need a big funding for such kind of technologies and ideas. People are flush with a lot of ideas, like in IT and BT also there's huge amount of ideas coming up from base level to even top level companies in India. But then it needs a real big support all around. So that is lacking. I feel that's one big disadvantage for Indian companies to start up and then flourish just like that, the way you're thinking. It takes time.
So,
Yeah, the appetite for risk in Indian businesses or investment companies is much lower, because see, there's a much higher risk of failure in biotech than in IT. So and the gestation is very long. So if you invest, you have to have a 10 to 15-year horizon. Largely Indian investors don't have that kind of patience. So their appetite for risk. That's one reason why very few companies are large-scale companies. Having said that, that's a problem in many parts of the world. Only in the US they've cracked a code of risk capital where they can invest, and they're prepared to lose lots and lots of money in the hope, or with even if one company or two companies click, they make up all those losses, more than make up those losses. So that's you've got to invest in hundreds of companies to have that kind. But doesn't exist in our country yet.
So if you look at the risk capital or the profile of the biotech companies like yours, you had massive experience coming in, and then you had a vision which you clubbed together with the complementary experiences which you all share common among you. But when we look at the startups at the stage where we have people in US where the universities are funding this biotech research, and then that spins out into a biotech company. Don't you see that being a deterrent in India? The university is not investing in this particular regard in form of incubation centers in biotech.
They're doing that now. There's a lot of effort to do that with the DBT initiatives, but it's not something you can create miraculously in 1 or 2 years or even 5 or 10 years. There has to be a culture of doing this, and US universities have had a culture of doing this. So it's not something you can duplicate so easily. Having said that, the mindset in the academia is also changing now, because earlier, academia always viewed industry with suspicion, because this was for profit. That's a bad word, but it's changed now. There is the younger professors in the premier institutes are all looking to see how I can get involved with a startup. So that, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, with more focus on this, you will see a lot more of this happening. I do agree that there is not enough critical mass of IP also existing in university science at this moment in India. But that has to change. It is set to change, and it only needs a few successes for everybody to jump on the bandwagon. That's again how everything works. Same thing what happened with IT. So a few major successes and people will start looking at this quite differently.
So we have been, the news has been buzzing around that the DBT secretary recently said that by 2025 it will be a $100 billion industry in India in the biotech segment. And this particular thing, when you look at, so many people have been suspicious about it, while the other people have reiterated the same. What would be your take on this particular comment?
Well, again, it's one thing is to wish for it, the other is to execute and deliver. That's where the challenge lies. Will it happen? It may. That it will happen, is that guaranteed? No. So my view is, looking at it, is that you got to aim high. In a ambitious growth sector like this, even if you come to 75, 80, 70, I think you've done very well. But if you set yourself a goal of 70, 75, you will come even lower. So I would say that it's all right for at least national goals to be set very high. At least then people are spurred into action. Let's not make any, we all know there's an extreme lethargy in our government policies, in bureaucracy and implementation. So they have to be given slightly much more ambitious goals than even, than. But I think, it can be done. This is my view, and will it happen? I don't know.
So how about Anthem? Have you set, like people said, Mission 2020 or Mission 2025? Is any goal set? Okay, this is the benchmark we want to reach by this time.
they say you take care of the small things and the big things will take care of themselves. So we are focused on what do we need to do in the next 1 or 2 years. We are expanding massively. We are putting up a new facility in a new site because this site is fully built up now, and that's a major investment for us. It will be in excess of 100 crores, that investment. So this is going to position Anthem to take us to the next level of which we see as a $100 million revenue should be our goal in the next 3 to 5 years, or even sooner if we're lucky. So that is our first step. 2025 is very far, so that would be it'll be nice to see Anthem as a very big company, but that I can't plan that far ahead.
So, being in the global biotech business, right from the beginning of its, right from the inception of Anthem, and how do you see the global community? How do they view the Indian biotech businesses, and how friendly are they in supporting or in case of giving their projects to you?
Yeah. Well, India is not a developed country, so the fact that we are still able to create a fair amount of buzz and recognition in this area is itself a great achievement. People do look at India and say, if you read today that there was a comment from Kofi Annan, I think he's visiting here, so that India biotech can change, It is really true. The India technical manpower, it is being recognized the world over. It is also understood now quite well that for a country of its, we're not even a middle income level country yet, but there is a tremendous amount of energy to innovate. I think that is being seen, is being recognized, and we do find that people do take notice of us when we talk this esoteric science of biotech, which to most people would be esoteric, right? So it's not something which is ignored. And I must say that we have a lot of the people before us to thank for this. The people who have put India on the map of biotech, like Biocon and other Indian companies, Serum, who have done a lot of even the Shanta vaccines. Yeah. So Bharat Biotech. These people have done a human service to Indian cause. So it does. We're not totally ignored. I must say that.
Now coming to the this human resource side, it just introduced me, like I have seen many Indian bigger companies as well as the smaller ones complaining about the human resource which we are getting out of the universities, and there's the definite gap which comes when it comes to the talent which you require when you are recruiting, and the talent which is coming in terms of the freshers or the people coming out of the college. So how do you look at this particular segment? How do we go ahead?
Yes, this is one issue which we always keep talking about. We certainly need talented folks to come into this kind of an area. As I said, this is a knowledge-driven kind of a business. In chemistry, I think still we are okay. Like we get reasonable good talent from the universities and with minimum experience from other institutions as well. But in biology, I have a big doubt that we are not there yet. We have to always depend on people returning from the foreign institutions and the work culture from that side of that part of the world. Sometimes even in chemistry, we struggle to get quality people. But now I think slowly things are changing. We used to struggle getting people for this kind of an area, but we get a lot of foreign written CVs these days, even in chemistry. Forget from biology, in chemistry we get. So there is a okay supply in chemistry. In biology still it's a big doubt. But I think going forward slowly it should change.
Now, looking at the scenario, whether it is human resource, whether it is research, or it is infrastructural challenges, or other resource challenges which a company like yours faced during its inception, do you think the government part, the Sarkar part, should be encouraging more or getting into the investment side instead of just putting the grants and other stuff?
Oh, again, government shouldn't be getting into investment. I think it's no mystery, it's no secret rather, that the government is very stretched financially. So this is something they should stay away from. What the government needs to concentrate on, we all know that. They should worry about governance, about creating infrastructure, creating the right framework of laws which are not obstructive but enabling. And if that is done, I think people will do the rest. I think let's not try and pull the government into every sphere of our lives. In the end, it's people who have to get up and do stuff. That's the only way it works everywhere. In our country in particular, we are woefully short of infrastructure, basic things, road, water, electricity supply. We need to get those sorted out, and that's all that people are asking for, and that's all that they should worry about. And the right policy framework, which is enabling, not obstructive. Because at the moment, many things have come to such a pass that it's highly obstructive. Things are not moving, and it's a log jam. Everybody sits and say, we can't do anything. Somebody has to do something, because if you don't clear the regulatory environment, you don't clean that up, how do companies move forward?
And for example, we are trying to expand, right? Now we expect from the government that the least is to facilitate us, to help us out, whenever we come and meet you. Like the project, environmental clearances, takes months and months. We are still waiting over a year now to get an environment clearance. It's basically, as you say, policies to be driven in the right directions and sit there, make decisions, facilitate the industry. That's what we expect, more than financing the industries at this point of time.
And how about, we have seen in Karnataka especially the tax waiver for the IT companies, but that has not happened for the BT. How do you look at that?
Well, it would be nice to have that. But again, I go back to, our take is a little different. As Ravi's just now said, if an environmental clearance takes 1 year, if there is a reason for that, yes. But for no reason, it's just sitting there. Why is it not moving? Because it's not moving. I mean, what kind of logic is that? If there is some information being sought, some process being done behind it, you can still understand it. It is just lying dead. Now, those are the kind of bottlenecks, wasting time. Look at it this way. One person has a working career of 30-35 years at the most. If you're going to spend 5-10 years just sitting around waiting for this file to move, that file to move, what a waste of human talent.
All right, so we come to the end of the show. Here we have the CEO and COO of Anthem Biosciences, although a little frustrated about the regulatory and other approval side, but they are very optimistic about the Indian biotech growth story. Mr. Bhardwaj and Mr. Ravindra, it was a great pleasure. At the last minute, any message for the young biopreneurs and the bioprofessionals which are coming out?
See, I personally am very optimistic about the young people of our country. I think if this country is going to go forward, which it will, is only because of the energy and the optimism of our youth. And you will see that survey after survey has shown that the Indians are possibly the most optimistic young people live in India. It's quite again counterintuitive. Looking at our country's burgeoning population and with so much pressure on our cities, on competition with that youth faces, one would think this would not be the case. But our youth are very optimistic. They will make the country grow, and I think what people should focus on is India is one country which has tremendous opportunity. Only when you start doing things you realize there are white spaces everywhere. So I would say to young people, jump into it, especially the earlier you do the better. Of course, get some experience, because there's no substitute for experience. And don't give up. One thing in India you need is perseverance. That's not going to change anytime soon. So be persevering. You will face hurdles, but that shouldn't deter you. That's just, okay, this is part of the noise you have to face every day. And stay with it.
So I second whatever Ajay says, yeah, this country, as Ajay mentioned, has got huge potential, especially with the youth coming up, as Ajay was mentioning. Um, and I also keep listening to a lot of leaders who have been really successful in many areas. And as they keep saying that, think big, dream big, and then start in a small way. One day you will reach and become big. That's my
Great. Those were the concluding lines from the CEO and CEO desk at Anthem. Thanks a lot, sir, for your time.
Thank you very
It
much.
was indeed a pleasure at Biotechnica to have you on board. We certainly look forward to the growth story which Anthem has so far drawn on the canvas, and we would really be pleased to meet you once again, maybe anytime soon, so that we can scripture out or write down your story once again.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.